Hi, my name is Charmaine,
Hi, my name is Teresa.
and we are Crystal Reflections. And today, we're actually going to talk about relationship. Um, and, you know, Teresa and I were having a conversation not too long ago about the last season of Love is Blind, which was wild, right?
A little
A
bit.
lot of like twists and turns, but there were a lot of things that happened like relationally that were great topics of discussion. And, just so that we're clear before we start, this is not to criticize or critique the cast. I feel like anybody that gets on a reality show, period, is a brave person. Okay. So respect, right? But to just look at the behaviors and to, just look at that separately away from the person, so that we can take that information and kind of glean from it and, use it for ourselves, right? So, yeah, we actually wanted to start talking about, or I have brought up Laura and Jeremy. And in particular, I think a lot of people know, the story of what happened between Laura Jeremy and Sarah Ann, right? But during the reunion show, what was interesting is that Laura really said and did some things, and even towards the end, like the last few episodes, her behavior was, I will say this, like to me, disrespectful, right? And the fact is that everybody deserves respect. And even if someone is wrong, you can point out their behavior, you can call out their behavior and say that it's wrong. But to belittle and degrade and, call people names, especially on, public television, that is just like etched in time now, right? That is never going anywhere. And I think especially for, a man, that's hard because men typically look for respect first, then love. And I feel like, and this was one of the things we were talking about, that is the when kind of like when feminism goes wrong, that's very extreme. Like you don't have to tear people down. And I understand that she was really hurt and it was wrong, how they went about things, them meaning Jeremy and Sarah Ann. It was very hurtful. They could have done that differently. But to, attack in that manner, it really, you could destroy him as a man. You could destroy his spirit. And this is where men to me are they're different. They're not, I feel like as emotionally resilient as women, right? Because even society allows for that, for us to show our emotion, to be softer and, where we have to the society almost like primes you for that, right, since you're a child. But when it comes to men, they're not really allowed to show emotion on the same spectrum, right, as women, because otherwise, society could see them as weak or whatever the case is, so they keep a lot of their emotion on the inside, so that what they show is like anger, right, instead, so they have a few, a shorter spectrum of emotion that they can visit, in public. And so it's like, how could he even respond to that? Like there was no way for him to respond, and he was being cut down as a man. And again, I'm not saying his behavior was right, but her behavior and how she went about it was not good, because at the end of the day, you're hurting a person, and I feel like that was a very intentional attack, to, bring him down because, she felt bad, you know. So I don't know what, thoughts you might have, had about that, Teresa.
Um, so I guess I will say something that you actually said regarding this topic. where you said you're not always right. Even if you are right, your behavior might not be right. So I think that's where I kind of sit with this, is that it 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 no longer, I think they strongly held on to feelings of I'm right, you're wrong. And it was a lot of that dynamic, even when Sarah Ann was reintroduced into the dynamic. Um, and what I just kept seeing was that whether they, like you said, whether they were right or wrong, almost stopped mattering to me, because it was not about who was right and wrong anymore. Um, and I guess what I just thought of was character. Who are you truly? And I think when I was watching them, do this dance called Relationship, I was wondering about their true character. Because to your point, this is a public, television space. They're aware of that. So I often found myself, especially in this wild, as you say, season, um, I often found myself thinking, about the authenticity of each individual, specifically those who found themselves in a challenging space. Um, and I couldn't tell whether they were being authentic, true to their character, if you will, based on the television show, or if they were being true to themselves, their character once home, let's say. And I think I could be wrong, right and wrong. Um, I found myself surprisingly leaning into Jeremy being more authentic than Laura. Um, so it was less about who was right and wrong, and who was truly being themselves and showing who their true character is. Um, Especially in those shots when they were hurting, genuine hurt, genuine pain. What came out? Who came out? And so that's kind of where I sit with that. It was to your, you're bringing up respect, and I think that part of, and I could be again wrong, but part of where Jeremy was trying, I think, was by being quiet and doing his best when possible not to disrespect Laura. And I don't think he got that in return. I think Laura actually set out to disrespect him. She, as you say, set out to destroy his character, to destroy him as a man. Like, it was just things that she was saying that I don't know if it was based off of her pain, or if it was genuinely something that she believes that she can do, and that is her character. That there's this superiority that she came with, that for the type of man that he was not going to work anyway. I think that what I saw was two people who were not willing to compromise. I saw two people who forgot why they even came on the show. Because I wrote, there's a point in the pods where your intuition kicks in and you have a choice, and you choose kind of like your normal comfort, the mate that that reminds you of your normal comfort zone, right? Your comfort. And then you have this moment where you have to kind of try something outside of your comfort zone. And I think that sometimes, I think of this show and I see that it kind of has this point in the show for each couple that they have a choice to make. And that choice is to remain in their comfort zone, choose the usual partner that they normally would pick anyway. And oftentimes when they do that, I find that they'll end up wanting to change their mind later,
Mhm.
or they'll end up it kind of playing out the same relationship stuff with that person. Um, the ones who tend to challenge themselves to do something different, to choose something different, and to explore almost like that challenge for themselves. It's
Mm.
not about the other person. Um, I think that you see something different, right? Um, and you see a different outcome. Whether they end up together or not, they walk away with something that they didn't come in with. And I think that if we stick to this couple, this was an opportunity for both of them to learn how to compromise and how to do it respectfully.
Mhm.
Um, and honestly. So I think
Yeah,
that's what.
that makes sense. The what's interesting how you left that off with the honesty. I feel like there's honesty with yourself, right? When you're speaking about
Mhm.
character and who you are, why you came there. And then honesty with other people. I think that that was also just a theme of the show too, in some way, right? This honesty. When are you going to tell somebody the truth about XYZ? Or, you know, are you going to show up fully as yourself? One of the things that he did that I thought was funny, and at first I was kind of rooting for them a little bit. Their personality is very strong, Laura and Jeremy, when she was talking about, hey, I need my house to be like clean, and I won't stand for XYZ. And he's like, no problem there. Like my little robot, what is it? What are them like iRobot thingies or whatever? I can't think of the name, but he was like, it's sweeping the floors right now. And sure enough, when they walked through his door, that little robot was moving all around, right? So they matched well. And she said, you might actually be a little bit more clean than me, which is scary, right? um I did like that part of their relationship where they were very explicit about who they were as a person. I think where the connection broke was in the compromise, right, of that, and then also the respect factor. And I will say this as well for him, the way that he went about um I want to say leaving the relationship, because I'm a firm believer, and we've discussed this before, right? I'm a firm believer that sometimes men will leave the relationship before verbalizing that they've left the relationship, and they'll wait for you to say, hey, this is over, right? And there were things that he did, like that staying out late at night, until 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. You didn't stay out with a friend even from Love is Blind, right? That would be different. You stayed out with the one person that you had a hard time making a choice about. So that, between the two, that in itself was low key disrespectful. You know what I'm saying? So there was this disrespect on, both sides.
Mhm.
And I feel one was, you know, I'm not going to say more subtle, but maybe kind of, sort of, it just came through in action
Mhm.
versus,
Absolutely.
her going off and, saying, hey, you did this thing, you hurt me, I'm lashing out. It could also be because, like you said, you're being viewed online. Because one of the things that, you're being viewed, on TV. And one of the things that Laura said was like, you're not gonna do this to me. I think something like almost like in public
Mhm.
type of deal. So there is that aspect there. So it makes, understanding the complexity of what's actually happening a little harder, right? Because now your pride is involved, right? Because she was like, not only did you do that to me, but you did that on national TV. So I'm going to cut you down like several thousand times, right? Any chance I get is happening. And then to, make it worse in the reunion, like people are just like clapping and showing their disapproval and hooting and hot, like, so she also had the support, which was interesting, of the crowd to kind of heckle, both Jeremy and Sarah Ann, and that that in itself is typically only going to make people more defensive. They're going to be less willing in that moment to look at themselves because they're being attacked. So now they're going to be defensive. So, they're not going to apologize. And I think that people were looking for them to apologize. And at that point, it's like, no, you know. So anyway, like getting back to the honesty, um, what's an interesting spin on that as well too is Sarah Ann, because she felt like, remember that, like she was being honest by telling him, sending him this message online and telling him how she felt. But you also have to know, and this goes back to like character, and integrity. Like, would you want another woman that, was potentially your competition to reach out when, like, you guys, I think they were on their honeymoon or something like that on social media? You would feel disrespected. You would feel mad, right? So there was an element there where you kind of question, like, what kind of person, you know, um, Sarah Ann was showing up as, even though she said, I'm being honest about how I feel, right? So I think sometimes when we're, talking about some of these characteristics, you have to look how you're applying it in your life, right? How you're showing up, being honest. What's behind that? Is there another layer? And typically there is, that's probably like a whole nother issue, but you're laughing, so you know what I'm saying. It's a whole nother issue. But hiding behind the guise of just saying, I'm being honest about how I feel. Mm, that's I felt like that was wrong in that moment. Yeah. Um, did you want to say anything about that, or?
And I would just say it goes back to what you said, the behavior wasn't right. So, she may have been right in I didn't get a chance to express what I felt and I didn't get a chance or whatever. I think there's a time and place for those things. And I just think that her timing was wrong. I
Exactly.
think that she could have waited, especially knowing that I'm 100% positive that he probably expressed that they were having some difficulties. He might have even, 5, 6 in the morning, you talking a lot.
Mm-hmm.
He might have even expressed how he felt about his decision. And, genuinely, they probably changed their minds. He was going back and forth for a long time in the pod, so it wasn't an easy decision for him, clearly. And I think, at the end, Lauren can stand up tall because he chose her.
Right.
But I don't forget easily that in the pods, Lauren made it a point to do the I'm gonna win him at all costs. Well, you did. Good job. And now she's coming back to do the same thing that you did. You know what I mean? She wasn't as honest as she tried to perceive, for us to perceive her. She wanted us to believe that she was one way. But like you said, with him, there were little things that she was doing that didn't give him the free choice, I feel. To the space and time and energy to make a solid decision for his life. Like, it became this battle of which one is going to win him. And they all forgot, I think, the goal, the end goal. And that you can clearly see that during the reunion show.
Yeah.
Because they're all stumbling and fumbling, and you have couples, which if you are done talking about them, we can segue to the couple that you really liked on this one. And I had a few in the background that I liked from previous seasons that not only made the, because to me it's the choice, right? That made the choice to choose love um with a person, but they, they had ups and downs, they had a lot of compromising to do. You could see it in the reunion show, like, and you remember if you watch the other seasons, like, ooh, they still together,
Yeah.
And pregnant,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
okay, like, so
Yeah.
and those couples really did choose, I think.
Mhm.
um and so I guess I would say at the reunion, you can tell that those three in particular forgot that the end, they got in the game and forgot the end goal. They got so caught up in competing with each other, with others, and saving face. And that none of that works in marriage, I don't think, right?
No, not at all.
Not at all, right? So it would have never gone very far with those kind of rules in place. And so I think that sometimes you can't tell what you're gonna do in a moment. Maybe his heart was with Sarah Ann, and
Hmm.
maybe Sarah Ann's heart was with him, and they made the wrong choice. But I think again the timing was, you could have waited until this played out. And if you chose not to marry and continue the relationship with Lauren, then you heal from that and then pursue Sarah Ann at a later date. But to just jump in the way they did, it's not a surprise that they were already having
Hmm.
relationship problems, and they're not married. Like, there was no true commitment, and you can tell he was
There's
nowhere
that.
near. And that's what made me go, did you come on the show to get married? Or, and that's what everybody else was side eyeing, but we'll move on to the couple that you um
Oh, Johnny
that,
and
that made it, the one couple that made it.
yeah, the one couple that made it. I really loved watching their relationship. There's another couple that I like too, but I'm not gonna go there. That's probably a whole nother show, but Johnny and Amy, what I really liked about them from the beginning was their openness, right? Their honesty, and they just like really trusted the process, you know? Like if
Mhm.
you listen to their communication, they said so many things to each other. They shared without oversharing, I feel like their timing was right. They showed up with their whole personality, um, and they took things lightly, even things about
Mhm.
this person that they may not, necessarily like, or they might feel like is goofy or
Mhm.
something like that. They just would, maybe call out little things, but it was never to attack. It was really just to be open and, you know, show who they are. And they were just like really like pleasant to watch, like their energy exchange. I think the other thing with the both of them is that they were very honest about what their deal breakers were, but they didn't just give up on when they told each other their deal breakers. They let it play out.
Mhm.
They were very direct in their communication,
Mhm.
but I feel like they said things with care,
Mhm.
and they're like, and they were open and honest about their feelings. Like, I'm sad about this thing, but let's see what happens, you know? And I think that type of communication, that type of I think that's why they are still married, right? And the other thing that cracked me up about them was they're like, we're waiting to have our first argument. And then they get on the reunion show and they're like, actually, we haven't had that argument, and I
Mhm.
wonder if the reason why is because they've just been honest and direct the whole time. So, like, what are you arguing about when you know where the other person is coming from, even if you don't agree, and you have this, I want to say, way of accepting what the other person said, hearing, how they feel, communicating how you feel and your thoughts, and then you put it to bed, you know, and let life play out, let like be. I think that's, another aspect to it as well, too. They were really in the moment. They were very present, right? In their relationship. They weren't, thinking about all these different things while they were with the person. They showed up, and they let themselves just be. And I think we're losing that today, especially with everybody like psychologically evaluating each other. It's like, put the book down, you know, uh, stop thinking your way through everything and just live. See what happens. Trust yourself. Trust all the information, all of the personal work, all the things that you've done up until this point to get you here. Trust that. And I'm going to just say, trust God, because they also spoke about spirituality, if I'm not mistaken, in their relationship as well, you know? So, yeah, like what are your thoughts about this couple, about Johnny and Amy?
Um, I think Johnny and Amy, one of the things I really liked about them was that they, if I recall, they didn't take themselves so seriously.
Mhm.
They did not always worry about where the cameras were and what the cameras were going to catch. You can't possibly be that invested the way you just described them, concerned about when the cameras are on or off. So I don't recall them ever speaking about, oh, you misbehaved off camera, but on camera you're being none of that. It was like you said, they showed up as themselves. And I think mainly what stood out to me was, you know, in trusting the process, in committing, because I think one thing we haven't spoken about in this choice is the commitment that comes with the choice. Because a lot of the couples, have made a choice to be together, but not all commit. And I think that once that choice is made in the pods, after that, that's when you start to see who's truly committed. And from the start, I think Jeremy and Amy were committed to this. They were committed to each other once they chose each other. Um, and they allowed space to play. And I think that, the previous couple, that's probably what was missing, is that they were so serious about how clean the house was that, I personally don't, I'm not that way. So when I saw that part, I was like, goodness, he would not, we would never.
It was, there's a
And
little
it's not because
OCD.
I enjoy a dirty kitchen by any means. However, for example, I had Christmas breakfast with my children. And one of the things that I kind of, when they left the house, I was left with a towel, hand towel, and it actually says a messy kitchen is a happy kitchen. And so for me, I do not resonate with those those clean, having everything spotless, like, ready to be, to me it's like ready to be what do you call, ready to take pictures for a magazine. Like I don't subscribe to that personally. I understand people who need their homes to be that way. Do
And they
not.
don't have no kids. Let's remember that.
Well, that's a huge, well, so that I did bring up, my kids came over. Yeah, that makes it a whole, like I think of a white couch and I'm like, yeah, no.
You talking
So
about
and for me, like I come visit and I'm like, am I gonna
sitting on
survive this
that?
without destroying your furniture? So, getting back to, and my point for bringing that up is that it's not fun.
Yeah.
My kids left the house, they were happy, full, they were excited about going off to the next, celebration for Christmas, where when you're cleaning constantly and making everything in perfect position. When can you let your hair down? When can you have a little fun? And I
Mhm.
think that's what I enjoyed watching when I watched Jeremy and Amy, or excuse me, Johnny and Amy.
Mhm.
Johnny and Amy was their ability to dress up, look good, clean up, but also enjoy life,
Mhm.
um, to do things a little different and be comfortable with each other while doing it, despite what other people might think or say. And I think that truly is what made them, what you called, I'll say what you said. You said they were a good example to a healthy relationship. And then those things you described, um, especially showing up honest, um, that's how they discovered what you said was they matched well. That's
Mhm.
how they discovered that, because they were willing to show up honestly. Because if you're not being honest about who you are, how can I make a right choice or a good decision about a lifelong commitment,
Mhm.
um, and to do it successfully?
Yeah.
So it was more than just them trusting the process itself. I think they also trusted themselves, and over time
Mhm.
they learned to trust each other. And I feel like that's what, when I think of those two, what made them, um what one of the cast members said, the strongest couple right now. They weren't the strongest couple right now, they were the strongest couple from the beginning, because they went in honest and
Yeah.
they came out honest, as you say. So
They were so fun
um
to watch. They were so fun to watch. I loved every time. Yeah, that they came on. And even like as you're talking, you're bringing up memories of like some of the fun
mhm,
things, that they did and said, even through the pods, right?
mhm,
Their humor was really I think he really won her over, like she laughed a lot with him.
mhm,
And I just wanted to say this one thing, and I believe it was him, but you could correct me if I'm wrong. I think he was the first one to say that he loved her, if I'm not mistaken. I'm
I don't
like, he
remember.
basically just let it like kind of slip. And I feel like what was interesting for me about that, if it was him, is that he let that happen.
Mhm,
I find that a lot of people will not do that. They don't want to be like the first sometimes to say something like that because it's very vulnerable, or they just won't let it happen, without putting some type of timing on it. Like it needs to happen after I've been on 10 dates first, like some foolishness, right? So, it's amazing how we put these kind of guards on our heart, and it's in an effort to self-protect, but sometimes self-protection can go wrong, right? They say when you build a wall, you're keeping things out, right? But you're also, keeping things, from coming, in within, or you know what I'm saying. So like kind of like it goes both ways, both in and out. You're not receiving and you're not giving. So yeah, I really like that. I'm pretty sure it was them, but yeah, he just let it flow. He just let it flow. That flow is important. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you up. I just wanted
you're
to
fine.
say that.
Yeah, I think, they allowed themselves to be themselves.
Right.
She
Yeah.
allowed him to be Johnny.
Yeah.
He allowed her to be Amy, and they weren't putting in so much effort to try to make them be anything other than themselves. And where again, I bring up the growth and the evolution, is that you are, when they were challenged, because they didn't argue, but what is that, where the challenges did come up, and when they were challenged individually, and as a couple, they took the time to communicate, and again, leave room for them to be themselves.
Mhm.
And to me, that's important, where you're able to leave space for the person to be themselves. and then you leave space for the, there's that, like, I think what you said was respect. It's a reciprocity there, that, I'm showing up as me, and me may not always go smoothly with you. And how do we come together as ourselves and create something new? And that to me was the challenge that they successfully overcame, where it was like, I think, a space with this couple where they were willing to learn and grow. And I think that is what sometimes differentiates the couples on this show. It, again, is that ability to be open to change, open to challenge yourself, because you've been dating clearly outside of this, and some of them say that just not working for me. Well, if it's not working, then you want to try something different, challenge yourself to do something new. Because if you keep doing that same thing and choosing the same type of person, without taking the time to stand up and face those challenges to individually, because that's important, but also together, it's going to just make it a lot harder to commit to that decision that you made.
Yeah.
So you start to see them slowly backing out as they realize, okay, this is real. I really got to do this with this person forever. And it's like you start, like you said, thinking. But I gotta say, what I do love about this show is that it does it kind of forces the both men and women to feel and stay in that feeling space. Because once you come out of those pods, the thinking, it's like, one of the things I like is that they always have this book,
Yeah.
and they're jotting down things for each person. You don't really get to do that in dating.
No, you don't. Maybe when
You can't be
actually
sitting at the
date.
restaurant like, so you want 5 kids? Okay, no.
You want 5 kids. That's
You
crazy.
can't do that. And oftentimes we don't remember everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
I'd remember that.
well, clearly I did. No. So one of the things I would bring up about this topic of choice, right, is that what I'm speaking to is that the decision can be based on your past, your present, or your future, right? So, the show is pretty much based off of, well, I've been through this, but I want that future. And there's this gap in between from the past to the future that they find themselves in, which is the present. And a lot of times, for example, myself, I have an idea about what I want, which is, their laundry list of do's and don'ts of picking my mate for this show. And kind of like, I can see what I want in the future based off of what I want. Okay, I want this, and I'd like it to look like that. But in my older age now, I can see how sometimes I can make a decision that is a different choice based on each one of those spaces in time, right? So if I'm making a decision based on my past, I'm going to choose a different type of mate than I would if I was making a decision based on my future. And same with the present. And this show, it forced them to kind of sit in the present while seemingly while in the pods, based off of past and future, right? So they're discussing those things, but it does kind of force you to be present if you're truly involved in the process. And I think that when we're talking about, Love is Blind, love is a choice. And to me, love is a commitment, because there's levels to this. At first, yeah, because I think at the reunion that they were really kind of putting out there, like, this process works, love is blind, and look at this success, and they're pregnant and having it. Well, let's see about 10 years out. Like, let's slow down, because depends on your perception of what the success is. And so basically it's kind of like, to me, it's like, not love is blind. Love can be blind, because clearly some of these relationships have lasted and worked out for whatever reasons, based off of that choice and commitment. But I think we need to really kind of focus in on where we're making a choice, not even the other individual. When you're going into this process of choosing a mate, because if you're doing it in the present, in the right space, you have a better, and I think this is where Johnny and Amy probably were successful. You have a better opportunity for the long haul. And the long haul meaning you stick to your commitment, you stick to the choice, you commit to the choice that you made, and as you say, trust the process of living. Because really, it's like, yeah, you're going in wanting a mate, but for what purpose? For what cause? You want to live and share life together, right? I think sometimes we forget about that part, that you actually have to live, especially from this show's perspective of when the cameras go off. A lot of these married, you're getting married on a whim shows, you actually are making a lifelong decision about who you're going to share life with, live with. And now, we've been in a few seasons now, who you're going to have children with and create life with. Going from, hey, your name is, and your fate, what are your things you like to do? And it's kind of like, you have to really think about what is life like when you have those children, because as we both know, children change the entire dynamic sometimes of that relationship.
You do.
And for better or worse, you have chosen this partner and this child. And I'm actually looking forward to, and I think the pregnancy that's the longest, potentially, one of my favorite couples is Bliss and Zach.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to them having their baby. We just found out that they weren't on the reunion show, but they were on the reunion show. Like, their presence was known.
Yeah.
I was at least thinking of them, because they were one of, not my favorite, but one of my favorite couples. And they had a similar dynamic to Laura and Jeremy, where there was like this third party. I changed my mind. I made the wrong decision. And it's like, again, it goes back to that making a decision based off of your past, present, or future. And I think one of the main moments that I knew that, for example, Bliss was different, and potentially for Zach, was when she made him cupcakes for his birthday.
Mhm.
And the contrast was, this woman didn't even remember it was his birthday, if I recall. I don't think she even remembered.
Yeah.
And that's who you were choosing to marry, like this woman. And that, you don't have to remember the birthday. It wasn't that. It was after she realized she didn't remember. She still didn't care. And she knew that girl was making cupcakes in the kitchen for his birthday. So it just shows. And thankfully they had the opportunity and was courageous enough to make a different decision. I think that was more based on their present circumstances and the future that they wanted, I imagine. So I just think it's interesting because we do decide, love is a choice, or at least you do make a decision based off of something.
Mhm.
And for watching these shows, for me, what I see is they're either making a decision based in their past, their present, or their future.
Mhm.
And none are wrong, I don't think. I
Mhm.
just think that it depends on which one you're committing to,
Mhm.
um, for the long haul. So,
Yeah, it's interesting when you speak about, the choice with like Zach and Bliss and, Zach, if I remember correctly, he was having some issues during the show, like when he was in
mm,
the pods, and I think some of it had to do with his past and his family and how he grew up, and that was really bothering him, and it just shows you how powerful that can be. And he seems like he's an intelligent man. I believe he's a lawyer, right? He's an intelligent man, but your intelligence has nothing to do with altogether with how you make this choice, because your past, um maybe even like your belief system that you've developed as a result of that past, right? You're going to be challenged, and I think he was challenged on the show, and I think that Bliss challenged him. um the same thing happened with another couple in the sixth season as well too, but that's when you have to make a decision, like you said, hey, whether I'm going to grow past this and do something different because this person is challenging me, or and I know that I need to, or let me just do more of the same, which is more reactive, right? And he you could say potentially did the reactive thing and chose a person that wasn't necessarily healthy for him. She had a lot of red flags, like even through just like through the screen or whatever the case is. She had a lot of red flags. One of them was definitely the birthday, because I agree with you, like um if you see somebody's making cupcakes and that's the one person that's interested, the other person that's interested, that should include you in number one, right? But okay, fine, you don't really maybe care to that level. Well, now it's time for you to be honest with yourself. What am I here for? You know? But that didn't take place, Um, Now what I will give Zach is that after I feel like when they went on their honeymoon, and I forget the girl's name, but when they went on their honeymoon, I think he handled himself well, in the sense of he realized he made the wrong decision, and he tried to see if his decision would work first, giving her a chance, giving him a chance. And when he saw that, he faced it head on and said, this is not going to work. And it was interesting because it was even challenging for that young lady. She didn't want to face it, probably because she wanted to stay on the show, but she didn't want to face it. So he made that decision. And I feel like it was so bold of him to go back and say, hey, Bliss, I'm sorry that I did things the way that I did them, but I realized that, I made a wrong decision. I'm not saying you have to take me back, but I would love the opportunity to talk to you. And look at that. Now they're married, and they have a kid. So I think it's also a great example, in the sense of you got to give yourself some grace, some self-compassion, right? Because at the end of the day, you might do something reactive. You might pick somebody that you used to
absolutely.
pick, and it's okay. You just needed to learn something else, maybe slightly different this time. Well, then how are you going to handle that? Is it going to be a shorter period of time? Right? Even if you did the same exact things, that's something that's
Mhm.
different. I went through that, you know? Um, and it could be very disappointing when you do all this work and you think you're picking the right person, and you're like, not the right person. I have dated this person before in a different body. oh my God, what did I do? Okay, fine. Now that you get over the initial shock of that,
Mm-hmm.
what do I do with this? Well, I know that this is not for me. Maybe I'll give it a chance,
Mm-hmm.
which he did. And when okay, now I see this is not working out. Let me end this. Okay, that's it, right? Do whatever healing you need to do from that, but also give yourself some kudos, right? A pat on the back for one, noticing the pattern, right? And this speaks to that growth, right? No,
Mm-hmm.
that evolution that you spoke about earlier, you notice the pattern and you did something different. You took action, even if it was to self-protect and say, this is enough. I'm not going to go through this, for any longer. I've learned what I need to learn, and I'm going to make sure that I learn what I need to learn in this situation. That
Mm-hmm.
happens as well too, right? Like you really do need to take some time to reflect. And I believe that he did before coming to, Bliss to speak to her. And I just like her because she's just like so cool breeze. And I want to say this one thing about her. Sometimes men, we always talk about, or I feel like the public always talks about women overlooking these good men, right? Well, men do the same thing. Sometimes they overlook good women that are calm, that are collected, have their head on right. You understand? Because maybe subconsciously they know this woman is going to challenge them. So they pick the other girl. And I don't know whether that's necessarily what Zach did. I think there were other things involved there, like a
Mm-hmm.
family history.
Absolutely.
But I do believe that somebody like a Bliss, a woman like her could be taken for granted. And she's like the bomb.com, right? You could see that, right? Like she seems like she's a really solid person, but men will overlook somebody like her
Mm-hmm.
because she's calm, she's reserved, she's not, her emotions aren't all, like she's not super expressive. They're there, but she could easily be overlooked for the girl that's like a good time, that's maybe louder, a little bit more, animated, fun, it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like once he took the time to like slow down, he was like, wow, she was really the woman for me. And I am so sorry that I made that choice, just got interrupted. I'm so sorry I made that choice. Can I do something different about it? And to me, that's respecting your process. And can I say manning up? Just saying, I made a mistake. If you give me a try, let's see what we could do. No expectations.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I enjoyed that couple as as well too. So I'm
Yeah.
excited for them having their baby as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I think she listed the opposite of what you said Lauren did, which was destroy a man. Bliss
That
had every reason, and that's the dynamic here. Like, just because you
point.
can,
Mhm,
or that you feel that you're right to do this thing,
mhm,
it doesn't make it right. The behavior, as you said. Bliss made a decision that she wasn't going to destroy this man, that he changed his mind, he thought something different. Really, he made a different choice. And I think again that's where the choice, he knew he could commit to this, not that. And she did not take any opportunity to just sit there and destroy him as a person, destroy his character as a man. Um, she still, I think, she understood, or at least took the time to understand why he might have made that decision, because she truly got to know him in the pods. And that's the difference. Did you truly get to know this person? Or were you so focused on how you were showing up, or what they may think of you, or even worse, what the audience will say and you said something earlier about TV, you said the internet. You were correct, actually.
Yeah.
It is the
Oh.
internet. Because at the end of the day, once the TV show is over, they're taken to the internet, i.e., we're sitting here talking about it on the internet. It's not the TV show anymore. And I think that a lot of these couples have a great reason to think about what they're showing up as, and how they're being portrayed on national television, because they will get, as you saw on the reunion show, the internet is vicious, and they will get in them chats, and they will get in those comments or go on their pages, and you talk about destruction, destroying a man. They will destroy any of them because they're there to be scrutinized, be criticized. And so I do understand that matters to the show cast, but if you're showing up honest,
Right.
respectable, and respectful, and open to the process, as you saw on the reunion show, the success rate is possible. So, and that's what they end up saying is like, oh yeah, see, love is blind. It can be.
Mhm.
But oftentimes we're not open to change,
Yeah.
and even worse, growth. Like,
Yeah.
we sometimes fight that. And I think that's what kind of, I think, made the couples who have made it and continue to stay together and stay committed, again, is because they made that choice to um show up as themselves, receive that person as themselves, but also see in them the change, the growth, and the potential as a couple together, bringing in new life,
Yeah.
whatever that, come what may, whatever that looks like. Because we can't predict how that turns out. Once the child comes with a whole different personality, and you don't know what that will do to the relationship. So very, I think if they continue to communicate, that's going to be huge.
Yeah.
um
Yeah. And it's and to your point and everything that you're saying, um, what you mentioned earlier is true too. It's a choice. And really in relationship, um, you have to keep making the choice, right? Because of the change, because of the
Sometimes
growth.
daily,
Yeah.
sometimes daily. It's not a yearly honeymoon choice. It's,
Mhm.
sometimes it's with each day, especially what's going on in the world. You just don't know
You don't.
how you're going to be affected. So we're just talking within the relationship, but now we're adding in external factors that will contribute to this relationship's dynamic. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Powerful stuff. Powerful
they
stuff.
they ended with saying, or at some point I remember them saying, it's like therapy watching this show. And
Yeah.
I, when they said that, I was like, it kind of
It is.
it starts to make you wonder. And if you're self-reflective, like you said, you'll start to really, sometimes you'll identify with some, others you may not. But um if you're being truly reflective, really to think about, how do I show up in
Right.
relationships?
Right. Right.
How do I make choices in relationship?
Yeah.
um so that's when I heard that, that's what I was thinking more so. For me, I'm more reflective, and it made me think more purposeful in how I show up and who I am truly, so that when I get into these relationships, I'm not as they say, showing up as my representative or
Of my representative of my
representative of the
representative.
representative of the representative. That's what
Right.
you always say. The layers you talked about
Yes,
earlier.
girl.
There's layers. Um, but yeah, so I think that, it does start with self.
Mhm.
And then how you, so if I'm honest, I'm honest. If I'm respectful, I'm respectful. Um, and I'll say this, oh, I'm open. But if I'm not,
Mhm.
this is a challenge that comes my way
Mhm.
to teach me how to be honest.
Mhm.
Because if you're doing this, connecting with this person who's honest, they're going to challenge you to be honest. If I'm not respectful, if I'm disrespectful, I'm going to meet with a person who's going to challenge me to be more respectful.
Mhm.
That's the growth, and recognizing those areas that you need to grow. Without, like you said earlier, allowing your pride to get in the way. And that's been my challenge. Time and time again in relationship, it's like, okay, what area do I need to grow in now? And um,
Mhm.
you brought up walls earlier, and building walls and being guarded. And we talked about that on a previous, you know, conversation, that, that openness is huge.
Yeah.
Um, like you said earlier, the giving and receiving. So I
Mhm.
think oftentimes the couples who stand up and are committed to the relationship are the ones who have that ability to give and take, and choose to, like I said, daily, I imagine.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
choice.
It is. It definitely
Choices.
it is. It is. And I'll say, for myself, one of my choices, I feel like, or a choice and challenge in relationship, is to just be, like, to trust all the work that I've already done, to trust even if I've made a mistake in the past, even if I make a mistake in the present, it's okay,
Mhm.
right? And to just let yourself be, like, live for real, because that saying, tomorrow is not promised, is very true. And as you get older, you come to realize that more and more. Life is very precious, and you want to spend time with people that really matter. So I want to
Mhm.
be present to decide whether I want you in my future. You know what I mean?
I do. I actually do.
So, yeah, and vice versa, because you're also giving that person, you're giving them an opportunity to make the same decision. It's fair, right? But today it's not always easy, to show up and just be present, so many things, outside of ourselves pulling for attention. Um, but again, it does go back to a choice, and it's like, we'll just keep refocusing, keep bringing yourself back to the present. And I think also it's important to get somebody that can engage you there,
Mhm.
right? So, and vice versa, you engage them there. So yeah, it's what it all boils down to is everything is really a choice. How you show up,
Mhm.
what do you want to be, past, present, future, how you perceive these things, and also understanding and being flexible in your thought, you know, um, being flexible in your behavior. And I think also being flexible when it comes to having an open heart and knowing when to, as they say in, I believe it's in like Chinese medicine, they talk about the gate of the heart, knowing when to open and to close it, because there is something to protecting your heart as well, right? Um, so yeah, I think I will leave it there.
Okay. Well, I won't touch it then.
Well,
Um,
no, I'm talking about me. If you have something to say.
I mean, I think ultimately the protection piece, in respect to anyone who has been brave enough to go on these shows. is that part of their reactions or behaviors or choices even is also based in protecting themselves respectfully. And how that might show up on screen, on the internet, and a DM, who are we to judge?
There's
Because
that.
we only see a part of what life is for them. We're only seeing a bit at a time. And so I just wanted, when you said that, like part of my, lens watching is also to see where people are being self-protective. And it doesn't always look pretty when you're trying to self-protect. It comes off, as you said, reactive, disrespectful, dishonest. And I thought of someone in particular from another show where it was, you can see it was to protect themselves, not even from people on the internet, not from anyone else. The protection was literally like, I feel unsafe and I'm going to have to protect myself from whatever I feel or deem unsafe at this moment. And that's where you see some of the behaviors that may not be their character, but we're judging it based off of what we see and think we know. So I just wanted to put that out there, that part of that, open and closing, I think is natural. And sometimes the closing is because it just simply you don't feel safe. But that's part of the growth in each relationship is, for me personally, testing it out. Open. See where this goes. That's what you said. Be present, be open. Trust in the process. And I think that part of the growth is learning that over time. And there's no specific time frame to get this right. It is part of, like you said, the living and learning and growing. So
Yeah.
very interesting. So being present, we're at time. This was a great conversation.
Yay.
We hope that you've enjoyed it. Those who are listening in, we want to say thank you so much for listening in. This is Crystal Reflections, and we'll see you at the next